Okay. So now we're doing a live broadcast, and it doesn't seem like it's any different from the conversation we were having prior. So,
Uh,
that's why I was saying it's going to be a comforting conversation because it's just me and you. It's,
right.
just pay attention here, and when
Okay.
you have an hour to answer the questions that we're going to ask. And if you start to go too quickly or take too long, I might try to move it along or slow it down a little bit just to remind you that, it'll be good to just take your time and make sure that everyone hears how fabulous a person you are, right? And all the great
Thank you
things that
so
you're
much.
doing. So I want to thank you for joining us, the Amherst Pelham Regional Schools and the Fort River community today for our first of three forums. The staff and caregivers were given an opportunity to submit questions that they would like to have answered by you. In addition to the questions submitted by the community, there are a few questions that you heard before when you interviewed, right? So if there's enough time, we will ask any questions that are submitted via the chat feature. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So, of course, the community have not seen you. They were not part of the interviews. And so, this is your opportunity to let the community know about you, what roles, what responsibilities, experiences, and licenses you may hold that have helped you prepare to be the next principal of Fort River Elementary School.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Doreen, for inviting me to be part of the forum and for the community at large for allowing me to be part of their time to have them know me a little bit better. My name is Denise Pagan Vega. I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. I am multilingual and multicultural, and I'm very proud of my culture as to who I am and where I came from. That was foundational. As I understood as an adult the importance of being proud of who I am. When I was very young, my mom relocated to New York City, so we lived in the South Bronx for a couple of years, and we didn't know any English. Therefore, the schools were really important and pivotal in our development of learning the language, not learning the culture that we were not used to or know, because again, in Puerto Rico, the culture is very different. And so it was important. And I still remember to this day who those teachers were. We lived there for 3 years, but mommy was very clear. My mom was a single mother, and she was very clear in terms of learning the language, learning English, but also maintaining the Spanish. So we were bilingual. So those teachers were vital in my development. They gave me, and I still love dictionaries because I would get vocabulary words to look them up. And that's how I learned. Libraries also were extremely important. I would go to the library in the school every Friday, get a book to read, and bring it back on Monday. So that was really important. I also participated in summer school and after school, and I always say the story. I didn't know I was a Title III kid or a Title I, but I learned how to eat bologna sandwiches and peanut butter sandwiches and learn arts and crafts. And again, that also helps my emotional well-being. So I am a proponent of summer school and after school programs because again, those were foundational for me. We relocated back to Puerto Rico, and I graduated from high school and always wanted to come to the United States to do my higher education. And I had to take all sorts of exams, the TOEFL, the SATs, the College Board, all those tests, because again, my first language is Spanish. So I came, and the story that I would say I always circled, the highest, they always asked, what is the highest grade that you want to achieve? And at the time, as a 16-year old, I knew that I wanted to have a doctorate. I didn't know how or when or what that looked like, but I circled that. And I came to the United States my first year, transitioning to a different, again, culture, very different from what I had been used to. My mother brought me to Indiana, took the airplane back the next day, so I was left alone in an environment that I wasn't accustomed to. But I enjoyed that experience for a year. However, I had a very heavy accent, not knowing how to pronounce certain words. I remember asking a professor a question, and his response to me was, "Why don't you go back to where you came from?" And I remember that I was like in shock, not knowing how to respond to that, knowing that my mother had always, in here instilled, education, 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 and that I would always had to follow my dreams. I called my mother and I said, I don't want to stay here any longer. She said, no, you're staying on, you're finishing the year and then you can transfer if you wish. So I did transfer. I completed my bachelor's and then I completed my master's. And I still remember in the back of my head, I wanted my doctorate. So I have two children and I went back to school. My kids were in middle school when I got my doctorate. And I always say, dreams are important if you feel that that's what you aspire to. And I believe in opportunities, opening the doors of opportunities and breaking down barriers. I believe in justice, right? I know what being told that you don't belong here, but yet having my mother say you belong everywhere. So it's opening doors of opportunities for everyone. And I became an educator. I'm passionate about what I do. I'm always listening to families and understanding the needs. And I think the voices of individuals is very important. I've worked at every level of the educational system with the federal government, the state. In Puerto Rico, the State Department of Education. I relocated to Massachusetts 14 years ago. I was recruited to work in a district here in Massachusetts in the western part of the state. And I've been here ever since. And I do hold certain licenses that I can share. I did take my MTEL, so I also understand the challenges with having, testing in a second language that you don't really master that well. So it's about, developing plans and opportunities for not only the students, but also the families and also the community at large, the teachers and administrators at every level to come together to have a better understanding what education looks like and what curriculum, social justice and the justice in the curriculum. And I always say that children, especially at a young age, they develop a sense of who they are, and developing that they develop a sense of gender, the race, and I think that's important in being respectful of cultures, languages, religions, genders, because I'm one of those people. And I'm very open and honest and always looking for opportunities to improve the life of children. I believe in education. I believe teachers matter a lot because I believe that teachers are the change agents and the change occurs in the classroom. And there has to be a balance between what the students need to see themselves in the curriculum, right? In terms of, is there a balance between what is taught in school and what's happening in the community and home? I'm a single mother myself, so I understand fully the challenges and the opportunities that we can't do this alone. We need networks of people who will support us and fully understand the needs of all of our kids, not only academically, but mentally, socially, and emotionally. And I believe in, programs that allow the students to have breakfast in the classroom, lunches, and are open in the summer. I work very closely with federal programming to ensure that all those programs were in place because those are important. Schools are safe havens to our kids.
Well, thank you for that. I feel like you've answered almost all the questions that are on my list. But
Good.
I'm still going to ask.
Sure.
So, question number 2 says, our district holds many important values and initiatives, including social justice, project based learning, and arts integration. The practical implementation of these can be challenging due to limited time and scheduling requirements. As principal, how would you act as an advocate for these initiatives in your decision making and negotiating around scheduling and logistics?
I think that's really important. Again, teachers and the students need to see that, for instance, the arts, we learn to read through the arts, right? As we're reading, children like to draw. That's as a storytelling. So I think that's important to be able to look at the scheduling in the classroom or in the school and have the ability to negotiate those things. Again, the integration of the arts into the curriculum is important. Again, I lived it. I know how that helped me emotionally, even though at the time I didn't know that, but doing things The arts and crafts and art and the library, they all play an important role in the development of children. And I think that's important to learn early on, because again, kids love to learn. You know, the brain, I see it as an organ that expands. So the more knowledge that you provide and they see themselves in the books, the arts, giving them the ability to see that there are no barriers. They have the ability to do the work, and teachers need to also have the tools to be able to do this. And I like to communicate and hear what the concerns are of the adults, and then making it possible, looking for solutions together so that we can understand that it's about the kids.
Okay. So, how would you encourage and motivate your staff? And can you give us some specific examples of how you've done that?
So I think it starts with showing respect. Um, Many of us are not used to even just a good morning, how are you? Having an understanding of where the teachers are so that they are in a place in the school that they can bring the supports, and then to, to be in tune with the needs of the children. I think that my philosophy is that I lead by example, and respect is number one. And it's always, I never look at the deficits, but seeing where we are in the process and how do we build together those plans that will enrich the lives not only of the students but also the community, the teachers and the staff, and everyone is important at the school. From the person, from the janitor to the clerks to the administrative, everyone is important, and I think they also should have a voice in terms of the school needs to reflect the community, and it should reflect the kids, and it should reflect the needs and the desires and the abilities. And I think that we can come to consensus when we have an understanding as to being honest, having honest conversations about what needs to happen.
So, how do you encourage and, can you outline the role that you think parents, guardians, caregivers should play in the school and specify some best practices that you have used to help encourage that?
Certainly, I think that's important. Again, I saw it in my mother, single mother. I'm a single mother myself. I have a daughter who's a single mother. So we want to be involved. And I still have yet to meet a family member who doesn't want better for their kids. That could be a mother or a father or an uncle or grandmother or an aunt. So I think that we need to encourage them to come to the school. Should be, again, centers of the community where the families should feel, always should feel welcome. I think welcoming families. I've also, as part of the work that I previously have done, is going to the communities where the families are. Sometimes families don't have transportation. Sometimes, there's certain barriers. So how do we break down those barriers to have the families understand that they matter? Again, we want to be involved in our child's education, and we want to have a voice. And we also need to understand what is taught. And I think that, again, that communication. Y hablo español, así que soy totalmente bilingüe, and I welcome the ability to, and I always say, I go where people invite me. I welcome. I've been to churches, to community centers, again, locations that it's accessible to families, for them to understand that doors should always be open to them and they have a voice in the process.
Okay, great. So, here's another one. Knowing that there's a pandemic and students and staff are just returning to in person instruction, what is your vision for a fully thriving school committed to equity, social justice, and the social emotional well being of students and staff?
I think that's important. I think that this past year has taught us many things. And one of the things that kids are resilient, and kids can learn in many different ways. And so we need to look at now the capacity that we have as adults also to teach. It's the teaching and learning process of students, and how do we use the technology that the kids have learned, because that's an important tool. Again, we're in the 21st century, and we continue to talk about removing the barriers on our technology, and also it's assistive technologies for some of our children. We need the support. So I think that technology has played an important role, and we need to see how is it that we were not able to get to those students. What were those barriers? Because that's part of justice, right? And by the way, I see education as a civil rights matter. So I'm very much in tune with what the challenges were to for some of our families, and I also know that the GRIP program is at the school, and I'm thrilled to hear that because all of us were impacted by COVID, young, the kids and the adults. So how do we work together to ensure that those programs are in place, to have a better understanding of the needs of the students and how does that impact their learning, and to be able to reduce the anxiety that our kids have felt this past year, and to bring them to the school. Again, it's about what is it that we need to do a bit different. It is no longer the traditional way. Traditions are done with. So how is it that we incorporate some of those lessons learned or best practices and move forward?
This next question is similar to one that you heard during the interview,
Yes.
and it says, at Fort River, we consider all groups to be critical stakeholders in our schools. How would you get input from groups that have not felt included in school decisions in the past?
I would like to identify who those groups are and what happened and correct that. And I think it's important that all individuals, again, the school community, families are important. Whoever is involved in the school needs to be part of that fabric, right? The development. This helps our youth develop, it helps our staff. And I think the more we have an understanding of what those barriers were, we need to break down barriers. Again, I think we need to have a better understanding of what happened, what kept them from being involved, and then improve on that.
Can you specify like how you would improve on that?
Communication. Is it a language communication? Is it a barrier? Is it location barrier? Is it, again, I'm a single mother and I like family members to be involved and to be able to come to the school, or do we need to go to the home? Where is it that we need to go to have a better understanding of what the needs are and why is it they felt excluded? Because that's again part of social justice. What happened that you felt that you were not that you couldn't be involved, and how do we support you? How do we support those members to become part of the school community, involved in the school? Because that matters.
So please tell us about a time when you had to make a decision that you knew would be unpopular. What steps did you take prior to making this decision? And how did you handle the pushback, if there was any?
I think that adults sometimes have misconceptions about decisions that have to be made, because again, it's part of, if you continue doing the same thing, you get the same results. But then when you look at data, when you see what's happened or what hasn't happened, you need to take a deep dive with those individuals to have them understand why those decisions, and as a principal, why those decisions have to be made. What are the implications of not doing it? Again, it's having a dialogue in terms of why those decisions have to be made. And it's not about one person, but it's about the collective. Is it good for the kids? And I think they need to understand that we all have a mission, and it's about educating kids. And it should not be personal. It's about breaking down again the fact that we could not communicate, and understand that it needs to happen for the betterment of the kids and the community. And what did I do? Well, sometimes, making those decisions, do I need to bring it to a higher level so that others understand that it's not because, and I tend to think that we need to stop saying because the superintendent said so, or because the state said so, but it's because why is it that we need to do it? To ensure that it's impacting, it is having positive impacts in the lives of children and their families. So anything that's good for the kids and good for the family members, I will certainly push back also, because you have to have you have to believe that those decisions are going to improve the lives of the kids.
So I'm going to pause at this point just to see if you want to take a sip of some water or.
Yeah. Please let me know if you need clarification on any other things.
Okay. The next question says, please give examples, preferably 2 to 3, of how you will connect with elementary aged children at Fort River to develop meaningful relationships with all of our students. Please demonstrate your knowledge of engagement with this age group of students when responding.
Certainly. I think it's important to again show respect. Kids are very intuitive. They know when you are being honest with them and caring. I think three things that really matter in the lives of children: caring, the culture, and the curriculum. And there's always one person in the school who will change a student's life around, and I want to be that person. There's always someone that the students have a connection to, and I think that when kids see the adults in a reflection of themselves, someone that looks like them, they have a better understanding that that's where they belong. I have a granddaughter, and I always say my kids also were my lab. A lot of things that we learn in school, you learn in practice. Again, it's about being respectful, being caring and loving, and showing respect. And I think again, the kids understand that when they are meant to feel important and loved and wanted. Kids, again, I would say good morning to the kids, welcome the kids, be out there in the front so that they not in an office. Kids need to see who we are. Kids need to know our names. Kids need to we need to be a reflection of the adults that matter in their lives, aside from the family members which are important. But I think when the kids get to know who I am, they will understand that I am authentic and there for them because I care and understand. I want to understand their needs and being able to celebrate the wonderful things that they are doing.
This next question is about restorative practices, and it asks, can you give specific examples of action steps you have taken to implement restorative practices in your previous roles? And if you have not implemented restorative practices, how would you go about implementing it at Fort River?
I think it's important again to understand the culture of the school and where we have been and what has happened in the school to make sure that we correct those mistakes, microaggressions, I would say. Not everyone is understanding of what that looks like. But again, it's about social, again, it's respect, social justice, the values. It's bringing people together so that they understand that these are practices that are should be taught early on in school so that the kids can grow up again respecting and they have this sense of who they are and what does it mean. So it has to start with me, those practices.
So this is another question that may seem familiar to you. It says at Fort River, we have 3 district-wide programs. Caminantes, our dual language English-Spanish program. AIMS, a specialized program for students who have high functioning autism spectrum disorder. Building Blocks, a specialized therapeutic program for students with emotional disabilities who's, who need specific social, emotional, and behavioral supports. Could you please discuss your experience with each of these populations and your experience working with specialized program students?
I'll start with Caminantes. I oversaw the ELL or the Title III program in my previous district. Important to align the resources, not only the financial, but the teachers, curriculum, tutoring, the community meetings that needed to happen to bring the group of families together who were ELL families. I'm currently doing mental health. I am coordinating services, identifying what the diagnosis is for the youth or which are and then coordinating services for the youth and the families. Important to understand and having differentiated instruction for the groups of kids that we have in front of us, but it's something that we need to do because, again, like I said earlier, it's education is a civil rights issue for me, and I think that it's important to have the correct staff, the proper staff, to work with the needs of the students, and the environments also have to be welcoming for all students, so that they are, again, if they are in an environment where there is a lot of anxiety, they need to come to a school where it's calm, for them to be able to get the services, not only academically, but also social emotionally as well. And the staff is important.
So you also have the AIMS program.
Yes. Yes, and you mentioned that that's a high functioning group of students, right? Because we also make the inaccurate assumptions about students' ability to learn. And I think that once we have an IEP, we have identified the proper instructional practices for the students, including the building block students, that we're able to address their academic needs, and the kids are able to succeed. The same with the building blocks. And I know I heard that there is a BRIP program, which again I'm thrilled to hear that social emotional supports are being addressed in the school. And you need to have those entities who have the expertise to give us the professional development and the supports, the wraparound services is what I call them, to support all students.
And would you like to expand on your experience working with specialized program students?
Sure. I, again, as part of my previous work in the school districts and the state, I advocated for programming that cater to the needs of the particular population of students. And I remember having to work with the alternate assessments and alternate achievement standards to be able to have the teachers understand, and administrators, that kids can can do the work, can achieve to high standards, and I think that we all need to understand that it's high achievement for all students, incorporating all the population of students that you mentioned. And again, it has to be differentiated instruction with the supports in place to be able to have students on build the capacity, their academic learning to move forward.
Okay, great. And here's another question that you may be familiar with. It says Caminantes is the dual language program at Fort River. How will you support the mission, families, staff, and curriculum of this program and serve as an ambassador of the program in the larger community?
Certainly, again, as an ELL student myself, I think those programs are important to embrace, again, the culture, the languages, to be able to provide the supports for the students who are learning English as a second language, and also have the staff. I'm advocating for all students. I worked with the federal government on the legislation um, for ELL because in Puerto Rico was limited Spanish proficiency, and the federal government didn't understand. So there are certain things that we had to learn to negotiate at every level. Again, it's about communication. It's about advocating, again, because I'm one of those kids and I know how important. Again, I am the ambassador to El Caminantes and all other programs because, again, I'm part of those wonderful programs that helped me to get to where I am today.
And what thoughts or ideas do you have for bringing a sense of joy, compassion, love, and unity into Fort River at the student level, the staff level, and for the whole school?
Again, I think, like I said earlier, everything starts with me, and it's about leading by example. People need, everyone needs to feel respected. Everyone feels that they belong. So it starts with the students, the staff, everyone that works in the building. They're part of a learning community, and everyone should be able to come and feel safe at the school. And again, it needs to be a welcoming environment for everyone, being respected, the values, that socially, the gender identity, all those things that do matter, because it's about equity.
What is your ideal discipline policy, and how would you develop such a policy?
It certainly would not include suspending students. If you're talking about disciplining students, not that. That is not the way to discipline anyone. I think that, again, having, I can give you an example. In a district that I worked in, the students were having a lot of difficulty and they wanted to be suspended. So I called the family in, something that they felt that they had never, no one had ever asked them to come in to have a conversation to understand what was happening. And I spoke to the youth as well. And I still do this in my jobs, and this particular job as well, to have the voice of the youth in the process to understand what is happening. And we developed a plan. Actually, what I called it is an agreement that the youth, we were able to incorporate those things that the youth needed, the support systems in place to have a better understanding what was happening. And the youth indicated that he would stay in school, because we needed to understand that he didn't feel safe. So we need to have a clear understanding why is it that the issues are occurring, the discipline. But I think that having spaces for students within the school, we need to have counselors, a social worker, the grid program, and I think all of us could come together and have an understanding and have plans in place to have a better understanding what the needs of the students are, and not make the incorrect assumptions. I don't believe in suspending students at all. I don't know what I'm hoping that that's the policy in the district, because that goes against learning, right? Our kids, the black and brown kids, are the ones who are always suspended. So we're always marginalized. And I think that I don't believe in suspending, and I believe in just working with the youth and the family to have a better understanding and improve the outcomes for all kids.
Okay. And then we only have one question that was submitted, and after that, I'm going to ask you a question that we don't have on this sheet.
Okay.
Okay. So the first one is, what is something you have done that you are especially proud of, and it does not have to be work related?
Hmm. I've done many things that I feel very proud of. I think, again, not allowing the barriers that were presented to me and always told that I didn't belong, that I didn't need to be there. I'm breaking down those barriers and having a sense of self, and being proud. We were very poor, we still are, but in terms of kids don't know that. I knew that I went to school every day, and there were challenges, but I never saw myself as being not wanted in the school. So that created a huge impact for me. And again, keeping having a goal in life and keeping that dream that eventually, I don't know how or when, but it will happen. And I think encouraging others to do the same. So I'm really proud of the work that I've done, not only personally but professionally, because I encourage others. I went to a forum where I was a speaker a couple of years ago, and I spoke about, just like I'm speaking with you, about barriers and the opportunities. And it was about women. Young women came to me and they said, "You've given me hope to go back to school regardless of the age." And there was a particular woman that was from Michigan. We met and we said hello, and she said, "Oh, thank you for your conversation and your honesty, because it comes through." She went back and she did her master's. She sent me a note a couple of years later thanking me for encouraging her, for continuing her studies. And also have to go back to when I was a sophomore in college. I transferred to the East Coast. And I remember, again, because there were challenges as a student that I had. And I spoke to a professor and I said, "Is there any way that we can start a tutoring program?" And they had none at the time in the school at the university. So he said, "Oh, that's a good idea. Let's talk some more." We went to the dean. So we created a tutoring program. And I started tutoring an older woman, who, she gave me the story that, she had dropped out of school. She got her GED, but she wanted to go to college. She was, had 4 kids. She went on to graduate from college, and she always thanked me for being there for her tutoring. Again, it's just having an understanding of people's needs and looking for ways in which we can support. And that's who I am.
Okay. And so this is a question, like I said, it wasn't submitted, but I'm just sitting here listening to all that you're saying and, all that you're sharing with us. And I want to hear from you, from your heart.
Sure.
Why should we hire you?
I will be an asset to the school and the community at large. I fit into the fabric of the wonderful work that you are doing, and it starts with a leader. And I've been following the work that the Amherst Pelham School District has been doing for a long, long time. Again, social justice, you're breaking down barriers, you're having these conversations. I see the work that you're doing in another elementary school. So it starts having those conversations and the planning because you, Doreen, and your superintendent are very supportive. And principals need to be supportive of the work that the teachers want to do because they have the best interests of students at heart. And I will be an asset. I would love to be part of the community to encourage them that it can be done. Everything is possible again, and it's about having these conversations.
Okay. Well, I see that there are 8 viewers that are still here with us. I have
Hello,
no more
everyone.
questions. And I don't know if there's anything you'd like to say to the viewers before we end the StreamYard.
Well, thank you so much for participating today, and I welcome the opportunity to meet you personally and to have the opportunity to work with all of you because there is a vision, and that vision and the passion that we have about educating all of our kids, not some of the kids. I think it's one group of students that we can open the doors of opportunity for all of them, and I look forward to being part of the school community to make the difference and the changes that need to happen.
Okay. So I do want to thank you, Denise, for joining us today and sharing all of your experiences. And I'd also like to thank those who were able to take the time to watch us, and hopefully they'll share with their colleagues and other families that this video will be available for them to go back and watch and listen again. And thank you, everyone. You have a great evening, and we'll see you again. Take care.
Thank you so much. Buenas tardes.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.